Members of the company, this is your Places call. Places, please. Places for the top of the podcast. Places, please.
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the glitz and not-so-glam of Broadway, education, and everyday life with Uncommon Sense. Join hosts Christopher Smith and Charna Lopez as they bring you the best stories and shenanigans that seemingly prove how elusive common sense can really be. So take a little time for yourself to hang out with the dynamic duo Charnopher. And no leaving early, because you might just miss that 11 o'clock number.
Stand by music. Music, go.
Uncommon sense, the 11 o'clock
number. And we are Charnopher.
Whoa, that was a fast intro. Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome.
Hi.
To Uncommon Sense, the 11 o'clock number. Do.
That's right.
Hi, Christopher.
Hi. So Charna, I just want to jump right in. I think we should talk about, as promised, Jukebox Musicals.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
We decided mainly to focus on like All Shook Up, yeah?
Yeah, we can start with All Shook Up for sure. For those of you who maybe don't know what a jukebox musical is, you know what's funny? Do you say the word jukebox? I never say it. Jukebox.
Jukebox. Well,
jukebox.
Okay,
it's like the K goes away.
Correct. If you implode the K, if you don't explode that consonant, you swallow it, basically.
Whoa, terminology.
Jukebox.
Implode the K. Jukebox. Yeah. So a jukebox musical is a musical that is based and written around songs that have already been produced, written by a certain artist, by a number of artists. It depends on the show.
Yeah.
And so a storyline is written to accommodate songs by a certain artist or multiple artists. But All Shook Up, yes, is probably one of my favorites. So we'll talk about it. But I want to go through, I just did like a quick Google search.
Oh, uh-huh.
Listen
like
to all of these jukebox musicals. Are you ready?
Or all ones?
Well, it's a giant list. So I'm sure it's not every single one. But what?
There's a number of them out right now.
Oh, yeah. But I'm just like ones that people may have heard of. Okay. Mamma Mia, We Will Rock You, Moulin Rouge, Beautiful, Rock of Ages, Jersey Boys, which was my very first jukebox musical I saw. Tina, All Shook Up, Singing in the Rain-ish, and Juliet, Jagged Little Pill, On Your Feet, Motown, Moving Out, Summer, the Donna Summer musical, $1 Million Quartet, The Cher Show, Head Over Heels, Across the Universe, which is not a musical, unless they made it a musical. Ain't Too Proud.
I don't think it is.
Like, there's so many.
Yeah.
So many.
I have a thought on why that is, too.
Why? Why do you think?
Well, because, I mean, not to say that it's lazy, but there's already so much material. There's so much material.
Musically, it's lazy, don't you think?
I mean, yeah. But I mean, I wasn't going to say it. I don't say all the things I think, let's be honest.
I think the process of putting together a jukebox musical is not lazy. But I think the music side of it, you already have a hit written. So
but I will say
part of it is done for you.
Yeah. But I mean, because you are definitely capitalizing on the level of hit that already exists, you know? So, right. But I will say, which I mentioned in the last episode about the orchestration and the orchestrator and the arranger, like most of the time, All Shook Up's actually pretty close, but most of the time, the music gets a good zhuzhing to be in a musical, you know?
Yeah.
It's not.
For sure.
So.
Well, and again, now I'm going to like pitch us forward to our next episode. I want to talk about movies that were made into musicals. So that's the next one that we'll do. Okay. Look at us just like having a million ideas. We're the best. But a jukebox musical is different than a movie that's made into a musical, right?
Yes.
So like for our listeners who are like, oh my gosh, what about like Beetlejuice or Mean Girls? Or those are different. That's not a jukebox musical. That's a movie that was made into a musical. And that's a whole other podcast that we're going to talk about.
Addams Family, which we just talked about last week.
Exactly. So we'll go into like more of those. But a jukebox musical, All Shook Up, I think is very interesting because not only is it the music only of Elvis Presley, but it's also the script is based slightly off of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night.
It's fairly.
So it's really
it's
pretty close. Yeah, it's pretty close. So I think that makes it really fun because it's like this double whammy of like, cool, we're gonna create something totally new. They do set it in the 50s, which is Elvis's era, right? Mm-hmm. It would have been really crazy if they somehow like could set it in a different era, but obviously Elvis's music lends itself to the 50s.
Can you imagine Shakespeare in like 25 future with Elvis's music?
Right? Something. I mean, at some point, something like that's going to be made. But this show, they use Elvis's music and Shakespeare's Twelfth Night storyline skeleton. And I think they did a really great job with it. Another musical that I was not jazzed to do. I was kind of like, oh yeah, cool, we'll try it out. I had a few friends who just raved and raved and raved about it. And then diving into that show, I was like, whoa, this is like really meaty. I don't know. I think I was thinking like Elvis music, 50s. And then it was like, whoa, like there's so many lessons in that show. And so many, I mean, it's very well written. And who doesn't love Elvis music? I mean, come on.
There's some people,
like,
I'm sure.
The music is so, and they did some of the songs I had never heard the originals to, and or maybe I had heard it like once, you know, and so my brain thinks that like that's the original version of it, and then I'll hear the Elvis version. Or my husband's a very big oldies fan. He'll be like, "Oh, that's crazy how they like change that song around, or it sounds different because." You know, they've put this in there, or this instrument is now like featured in this song or whatnot. And so I think it's fun to see how that transpires. You know, I don't from a musician's perspective, how do you think that process would be? Do you think it would be hard?
It depends, because I feel like it does need a certain level of inspiration. Like you've heard some of the stuff that I do, like when I rearrange things, or like even some of the stuff we're doing right now. Like you just have to like try some things, and like I just rewrote something last night for the show we're doing.
Oh, cool.
And
good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. I'll tell you about it later.
You found out here first, folks. You found out here first.
Yeah. But it was just like I was listening through trying to do something, and I'm like, oh, we should do this, or what if we do this, or try this. Like for me, arranging is so almost spontaneously creative while working on something that it doesn't mean you can't have a plan. Like you got to start somewhere, but through the creative process, it's a lot of spontaneous ideas of like, oh, that reminds me of that, or whatever.
And I would be curious to know, like, and maybe eventually that'll be you I can interview, because you'll have, you know, written a jukebox musical. But like, what songs were cut? You know, like when they were writing All Shook Up, I'm sure they were just like throwing every Elvis song against the wall like spaghetti and being like, nope, yes, ooh, just kidding, nope, we're going to do this, you know? And I think that's a really interesting concept. The other thing I find interesting, and there are other jukebox musicals, obviously, that I just listed off. But, you know, Elvis sang his songs a certain way in a certain key, and then you have to be able to rewrite them for different voices or different characters, right? So Elvis, obviously, is Elvis. Right. Or Mamma Mia with ABBA, it's ABBA. So, like, trying to then pull some of those songs out of that person's character and make it for another character.
Yeah.
I think that's a talent for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, I think it's easier when you're changing voice types because it's automatically forcing things to be different. And then again, that allows for that inspiration to strike. Because I think it would be, personally, if I was doing it, I would find it more challenging to write for someone with a similar voice type to like Elvis in this case.
Yeah.
Because if you automatically, when you put something in a different key, it sometimes sounds differently. And, you know.
Totally. And I think with All Shook Up, the main character is like an Elvis character. He's like a greaser and he does the hip dancing.
Mm-hmm.
But his character doesn't sing it like Elvis sang it. You know, like they've written it. He like sings in the heavens. Some of that music is so high.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that was probably a smart choice on the end of the composers or the arrangers of like, yeah, we got to mix this up so people aren't like, oh, it's Elvis on stage, you know?
Yeah.
But then there are certain shows, and I wasn't even going to talk about this, but when I looked at that list, like Jersey Boys, have you seen Jersey Boys?
Mm-hmm.
That it is literally, or The Cher Show, or Tina,
I want to see the Cher
or
show.
Beautiful. What?
I want to see the Cher Show.
One of my good friends was in the original Broadway cast of that, so I got to go see her in it, and I thought, well, we'll get to that one in a second because I thought that one was, the writing was really cool with that one.
Nice.
But like Jersey Boys, it's just the story of Jersey Boys. It's just the story of that band. You know what I'm saying?
So I wouldn't even
Frankie
know if that
Valli
would
and
be.
the Four Seasons.
I know it's technically a jukebox musical.
It
I'm
is,
wondering...
but it's also then like a biographical. Maybe there's a term for it, like a biopic. Obviously, if it's a movie, so it's like a biopic musical, a biomusical,
a bio show. I don't know.
Because it's technically jukebox because it's all of their music,
right?
But it's not like a jukebox musical like and Juliet, where they've done a whole different, you know, it's a spin-off on Romeo and Juliet and then what would happen if, but or Moulin Rouge, where they've created a different story, but they're using, you know, already created popular music. So Jersey Boys, though,
that gets me on a tangent because I'm like, wait, Moulin Rouge was a movie first, so it's like the movie musical was the. I don't know if there's other movie jukebox.
It's
musicals.
like a movie. Beetlejuice. No, Beetlejuice has original music. Mean Girls has original music. Dreamgirls? No, was Dreamgirls was a musical first and then a movie.
I think so.
Singing in the Rain?
She says with great question marks.
I don't know why don't I know if that was a movie? It was a movie first, right? Yes.
I'm going to go look it up. Carry on.
But it's not jukebox.
Yeah.
That music was written. Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't matter then. It was just what got me thinking.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy how there's all these different things. But I will say with Jersey Boys, or when I went to go see, what's the one with all of the, not Motown, Ain't Too Proud. I saw Ain't Too Proud on Broadway and I was like, I will watch this a million times because it's a story. Yeah. You know, of their life. It talks about their life. I think that's cool too. I think it's awesome to have these kind of different styles of jukebox musicals. I do think the story of someone's life is a bit easier in that there's not a lot of original thought because you're just kind of taking their life and throw it out. You still have to write the script and be clever with how you do it. But I'm impressed at things like All Shook Up, where they had to write a show. Mamma Mia, they had to write a show out of that person's music. You know, it's like, whoa, how did they come up with
All
that
Shook Up,
concept?
it's interesting though because it might have been easier or more difficult depending because not only is it music unrelated, but then you have the Shakespeare element that is also sort of predetermined. I mean, not that you can't stray, but if you're basing it on some idea, you have these different ideas you have to creatively bring together.
And I think they were really smart in choosing 12th Night because I've now seen, so I'll admittedly tell you right now, I was not a Shakespeare fan growing up. never really been a Shakespeare fan. Like I wanted to be. I remember being like, why don't I like this? Why I want to be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember at OSHA years ago, Jeff Paul directed a production of Twelfth Night. And I had a couple students that I knew who were in it. I'm like, I gotta go see it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he set it on like the French Riviera in the 60s. And I was like, Shakespeare, I've been changed. Like, and then Maddie did a production of Twelfth Night at her college, and they set it in like a circus, but like a turn of the century. Like that's the cool thing with Twelfth Night, and probably most Shakespeare now. You can do whatever you want with it. And so now then setting that story in the 50s, it's actually not that hard, you know?
Yeah. I did an original production of it a number of years ago at the New Swan Shakespeare Festival that UCI does every summer. They did Twelfth Night, but they set it like in the 20s, and so they wrote like original music to it, and it was me at the piano, like kind of vaudeville style, ragtime, that type of stuff. So it was really fun.
Love that. It's just like such a testament to theater and how cool theater is, and how it's so, you know, you can transform it into so many different things, and the creative process like is never ending. But I think too, All Shook Up, one of the reasons I really liked it is it makes a big statement too about accepting people, and, you know, accepting people for who they are. And I think that is timeless. Like, you know, I listen to Rent now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is still so, I mean, Rent is what,
1996,
25 years old? 96. Oh my gosh, that's almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, I think it was 1996.
06, 16, 26. Yeah. So in 3 years, it'll be, dang. But I listen to, I run with Peloton. Shout out to my Peloton coaches.
You do?
But there's a Broadway, Peloton, and a couple Rent songs are in there. And the trainer talks about how if you just listen to the lyrics of some of those songs, it's just as relevant today as it was years ago. Same with ragtime. I listen to ragtime music and I'm like, oh my gosh, this show was written, I don't know how long ago. It took place, I don't know how long ago, over 100 years ago. And it's still so relevant, right? And I think that's cool with All Shook Up. You get this 50s music, you get, you know, a Shakespearean storyline, and it can still be so incredibly relevant for today and the lessons that are discussed in the show. So I really like it. I would do that show over and over again. It's funny, super funny. And if you get a good Natalie,
yes,
and a good Dennis,
Ed,
it's just, man, it is one of those shows that you're like cracking up, like you forget how funny it is.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I love those shows. I love those shows when you like have done them, but then you're like, oh, like Anything Goes is like that for me too. I've done that show and seen that show so many times. And then we did it last summer. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. This is super funny. It just has funny moments.
Well, that's another one of those shows that in its own right ages really well. Like as concepts of it age well. But
yeah. What other jukebox musicals? I'm going to list this. Have you seen? Okay, so Mamma Mia. I didn't see Jagged Little Pill. Did you?
No. I would like to, though, because I'm an Alanis Morissette fan.
Yeah. The people who, we'll talk about Share Show. The people who I've heard that have seen it really liked it. And I'm an Alanis Morissette fan too. And one of the songs from there, the ironic version.
Isn't it ironic?
Is on my Peloton. Yeah. And they talk about how, I didn't realize, I think maybe because we were a bit younger when Alanis Morissette came out. I mean, we're not babies, but like not like 40-year-old people who really care.
Correct.
I just was like loving the songs. Yeah. I didn't realize that she was given a lot of kickback on that ironic song, how like those lyrics aren't ironic. Did you know this?
No.
Like she was given a hard time for years about how what she had written in that song is not irony. It's just like bad luck. You know, like Rain on Your Wedding Day. That's not ironic. It's bad luck.
That's true.
So in the musical, they wrote that in.
Oh,
how
that's
like
fun.
the characters are like, that's not irony. That's just bad luck. And you know, like it's funny, like to know that was one of her personal experiences that then they wrote into the musical, kind of like a snub to like all the haters, you know, like,
yeah.
Oh man. Okay. The Cher show.
Yes.
So my friend, Jennifer Rios, the one and only, who will be on here at one point, was in the original cast of the Cher show. Fierce as a mo. She's a mo. Dancing her face off, wearing some of the most beautiful costumes. The costumes in that show were like insane.
I love that.
But the coolest part about that show was the way they wrote in 3 different Chers. I thought it was really, really
I know nothing
smart.
about the show, so inform me.
Well, Stephanie J. Block was she was the oldest Cher. And then Tia, I don't know their other names, but there are 2 other Chers, a younger and then a middle. Michaela Diamond, I think. And look at me knowing these people's names. And then Tia something. And the cool part was, so when I heard that it was like that, I was like, oh, cool. There's like 3 people that get to share the role. And, you know, how fun. Like, and that makes sense, right? So you have Cher at a certain age and then throughout her life. But they interact with each other. So it's not like the first third of the show is the one and the second. They like talk to each other like, oh no, that's not how it went, girl. Or like, you know, they're like, they interact in the dialogue. And I thought that was a really smart writing choice instead of just, I won't say boring, but instead of like here's Cher when she's young. Here's when she meets Sonny. Here's when she's a pop star. You know, it was like they kind of wrote in.
Believe in life after love.
Man. And Stephanie J. Block just killed that show.
She kills every show. Let's just be real.
I know. She's like a magical unicorn performer, right?
Yeah.
Ugh. So
She's
good.
really good.
So great. And her voice, like that's a very, very specific voice. The voice of Cher.
It's very specific sound. Absolutely.
And I saw an interview with her one time where she had white strips on her teeth to whiten her teeth. And that's how she found her Cher voice. Because she's like talking like, and she in an interview talks about how that like helped her to get her Cher voice. Yeah.
That's
that was so cool. I know. That was a great show. The dancing, the choreography, the costumes were like really, really crazy. Well, Bob Mackie, who, you know, is like famous costumer.
Yeah.
All of those costumes. I'm Cher. Like if you look back, I mean, I'm a Cher fan, but we didn't live in the era of Sonny and Cher.
That's right.
So if you look back.
We're not that old. What?
I was her for Halloween. Remember this year I was her for Halloween. We did icons at work and I went back to get some inspiration. I was like, this queen and her outfits, man.
Yeah.
Whoa. And they did a great job of recreating some of those famous outfits in the Broadway show.
I mean, she has more hair pieces than a bald man. Come on.
Right? It's insane.
Yeah.
Oh man. You know what I'm waiting for them to make, and maybe it's in the works somewhere and I don't know, is a Lady Gaga musical.
We'll get there. I think we're still too early. Her career is still, because I feel like her career is still like finding its way. Like she was supreme pop star and then she went into TV and then she did film. Like I still think
eventually
we don't know the full Lady Gaga, like what her career was, you know?
Yeah. I was in Vegas last month and in MGM or the Aria.
Does she still have
which hotel
does she still have a show?
No, but they have like her store and they have archived 50 of her costume pieces and the shoes and the headpieces. And I was like, oh my, to see them in person and not just like on her, either in a photograph or on TV. I was like, whoa, very Cher-esque, very like reminiscent of Cher.
I will say she is like performer first. Like I heard one time that she was, and sorry everybody if I'm misgiving information, I don't think I am. I heard that like especially after her Monster Ball tour, that first few years, she was pretty much broke because she put all of her money back into the show. Yeah. Like, and that's what was most important to her. But that's like that was kind of my point. I'm like she was never in this to make it rich. Like that's not why she was doing it. And I love that.
She
'Cause it
loves
was
the
about
idea of the
artistry first.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then maybe someday there'll be maybe a jukebox musical or a bio musical. Is that a name? I made it up. I
It
think I
is,
have got
but
to
I
check
like
and
it.
see
It's
if there's
now
an
has a
actual-
good ring to it. Bio musical.
right? Bio musical. I mean, I love Jersey Boys, and I will say certain musicals like those and the Temptations one that I saw, crowd pleasers. People are on their feet singing along, like, because it's music that's so nostalgic to them,
Well, that's
and
what
that
I was
music
going to
that they
ask.
grew up with.
That just made me realize, I'm like, does that have a built-in age cap? Like,
Yes and no. I mean, yes, probably, but even like I think it depends on the family and what type of music style you listen to. My son, if I took him, he's 11. If I took him to see either of those musicals, he'd probably know every song
because Jerry
we
loves
listen
the
to that
oldies.
type. Exactly. And so do I. And we've listened to that type of music before. And so he would know. But in the same sentence, it's like it could expose younger generations to that type of music. And then they're like, oh, that's from the musical such and such. And you're like, well, yes, but it's also originally from this band that, from this group or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's also like a teaching moment where you learn so much. I will never forget this, and this is not Jukebox Musical, but
you learn.
learn, right? That's Alanis Morissette. I remember being in Sunday school as a younger kid, maybe more like middle school, and we're discussing something, and I knew the answer because I had learned it from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Like, not a joke. And I feel like that, I think of that story all the time because like Hamilton is a perfect example of you're learning things from a musical that's history or something from the Bible or something about that era of the Temptations or what they went through or the record labels or Cher and her relationship. Like, you're learning actual information from a musical. And I think it's cool.
Yeah. Well, two things about that. One example for me was definitely like the Carole King musical. I went and saw Beautiful, and I was not a Carole King fan. I knew about her. I didn't realize how much of her music I knew, and so many songs in there. I was like, that was Carole King? I need to look this up. I feel like we just stole that for the show. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so it was educational from that perspective for me for sure. But that brings me to my second point of when you're writing something that is biographical or historical, like, you have to really delicately toe the line of creative license because people will be learning things from these things, and then they're going to think that's fact. And what we don't need more of is fake news. Okay.
No fake news. That's actually a really good point. I think, I think with Children of Eden, when I directed Children of Eden, I had to like, whoa, okay, well, a lot of this is from the Bible, but then there's also this random part of the story that is not from the Bible that we've now like thrown into the storyline.
Right.
And I think as long as, and I had a lot of students ask me about that, when we were doing it. And I was like, well, it's a musical. We're not like, we're portraying this part, but yes, this part is not, and trying to like navigate that. Yeah. And I guess that is part of it. Where did they do their research for Jersey Boys and how much of that is, true, or Carole King or Cher or whatnot. But I feel like if you're going to take something on like that, you got to do your homework. You've got to make sure that you're finding.
But even with that, like,
information.
you still have to build a story with drama and everything like that. Like, not to say that all of these people's stories aren't dramatic enough, but there's points at which you have to tie it together and find an arc for a show that isn't necessarily real life. So it's kind of, it's like I said, it's just that delicate balance. So from that perspective, writing a bio musical could be really challenging.
Yeah. And I think also taking that into account when you're watching it. So like the Temptations one and even the Cher show. Yeah. There's the drama between Sonny and Cher. There's the drama between the band members and if somebody passes away, or this in Jersey Boys, his daughter dies. And, like there's emotion, but it's also then, okay, I'm going to take it for that face value of this is someone's life story and I'm just going to enjoy the music, right? Whereas like you go and see something like Ragtime or something where the story has been fabricated and you can write as much drama and relationships and you can stage these moments and create these moments. Whereas with a bio musical, you shouldn't do that truthfully because you want to keep it true to the person's story. Yeah. I think that is probably a challenge in terms of like not engaging a viewer, but like getting somebody to like cry or feel that connected to something, right? Because you don't want to fabricate. You don't want fake news.
That's right.
It's true.
Oh, man.
If you could do, I mean, I already told you mine was Gaga. Who would you want to do a bio musical about?
Oh, man. I do love the Gaga one. Who would I want to do it about that hasn't been done?
I have another one in mind.
Good. You go while I think.
Queen.
They already did Queen.
Now, I know they made the movie. What? They made the movie.
Well, what's We Will
They didn't
Rock
make a
You?
musical. Well, but it's not the story, right?
That's true. It's just it's just a Queen jukebox musical.
Like I love the story because I loved the movie. I thought the movie was really well done. So if there was some way they could recreate that, Queen or Elton John.
Oh,
would be a big one for me.
Yeah.
I mean, they did the Tina Turner one. I haven't seen it. But
my gosh, you know what they should do is either like I guess this could go down all the rabbit holes, but my first one that came to mind was actually Andrew Lloyd Webber. Like do a musical about a musical composer, do a musical about Sondheim.
Would be cool.
Or do a musical
Sondheim
about
would be, I mean, both of those would
Gershwin,
be very interesting.
or Bernstein, or like all
about
these
their life,
composers. Yeah. And actually, I feel like Andrew Lloyd Webber might be. I would say Andrew Lloyd Webber or Sondheim because they both have such
very interesting,
prolific writing as well. Like it's just they just go on and on.
Yeah, that could be cool. I don't think that's been done.
They weren't all good, but it doesn't matter.
You can't win them all. You can't win them all.
And it's all in the eye of the beholder because the one that came to mind for Andrew Lloyd Webber was Starlight Express, but God bless him, Ben. Ben loves him some Starlight Express.
Okay, I love Starlight Express, and here's why.
Do you?
Because when I was...
Tell me more.
Well, here's why. Because when I was 10, and my mom still has this picture on her wall. I was just at my mom's house yesterday, day before, and she has this picture on her wall of me and my sister in the best 80s dresses you've ever seen in your entire life. I feel like I'm going to have her take a picture of it so we can like flash it up in this episode somewhere. Like poofy sleeves and like
just
weird lacy and my hair's all like brah. We're like fancy because we went to Vegas and we went and saw Starlight Express. And I remember being a 10-year-old kid and being like, what is this magic happening with roller skates and singing? I freaked out. And as much as it's kind of a kooky, ridiculous concept, it was done very well. Now I was 10, so maybe I would have a different feeling now. But they were skating like crazy professionals. It wasn't like I'm just going to skate on here. They were doing like ramp things and jumps and all. It was like a circus almost.
It is.
And then singing these songs.
I haven't seen the show in person, but I've seen like pieces. So I also shouldn't judge it because I haven't sat through it.
So, but I also maybe should now judge it as a 40-year-old instead of a 10-year-old. But I'm telling you, that was my first experience with Starlight Express and I loved it. Just like I had a terrible experience with Camelot and I forever hate Camelot. Like it's this, maybe I got to give things a second chance.
No, rewind. Terrible experience with Camelot. I had a good experience my first time with Camelot. So I want to hear your table experience.
I left at intermission. I don't even know what happens in Act 2.
What? What happened?
It was so bad.
We need to unpack this. Charna. Okay. Let me readjust here. Okay.
I don't even remember what happened in Act 1 because I've blocked it out of my memory.
What is happening?
They just revived it, right? Didn't they just revive it? Or is it going to be at Lincoln Center? Or it's going to be somewhere, right?
It's something. Mm-hmm. I've heard this as well. But what happened? Why did you just not like it? It just wasn't for you?
Yeah. It was boring. It was so boring. And it's kind of like... Okay, there's one other show and I gotta delicately talk about that one. But I was bored. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't like the music. I was like, nothing was intriguing to me. And I was like, why am I wasting my time? 20?
Okay, so I'm gonna only say because I played the show when I was 19.
What's another song from Camelot besides Camelot? Name one.
The one about, I can't remember the name, but it's the one about the maypole.
Oh yeah, see? There, I'm over it. A song about a maypole? Yeah. I'm done. Let's go.
But I think, you know what? This actually kind of goes, because I bet, okay, two things. One, I actually grew up watching the movie Camelot. So I watched, so I was, because they have all the music in the, now I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. The movie
It's such a great show. It's so memorable.
The movie came first? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. Either way, I grew up with the movie. So I already had that connection to it. And I enjoyed it from the movie. And I have to say, I didn't love the movie originally, but it was like one of the only videos we had for our VHS player up at our house in Tehachapi. So I watched it a number of times. But I also, when you do a show, as we've talked about before, it completely has a different meaning and feel to you rather than just going and watching a show. So
I totally agree.
I could see that. It's not.
There are a couple shows too. So
show.
Yeah, and look, I'll give it another chance. I will. I'll give everything a second chance. There are a couple other shows that like I've taken my husband to, that I like the shows, and he's like, I don't know what's happening. Like we'll get 20 minutes into it, and he's like, so Pippin was one that is very. I can see that. Pippin's hard. You got to really pay attention. Robber Bridegroom, when they did it at OSHA years ago. We were like 20 minutes in, we were like, what? Like the kids are doing great, but I'm like, what's going on? And then Mystery of Edwin Drood. I love the Mystery of Edwin Drood. And Jerry was like, I don't know what's happening. Like he was literally like, what's going on right now?
Well,
so I think you've got to be able to follow along.
I was also like, what is happening before I really worked through it.
And it has to be entertaining to a point. That doesn't mean like in your face. Like I need to be engaged in it. So I don't know how we're on Starlight Express is where we were at.
But I want to hear about if you're willing, because you said you had to talk about the other show delicately. Do you want to touch that with the 10-foot pole or just move forward?
Oh no, that was Robert Bridegroom at OSHA.
Got it.
And it was, I remember going to see it and thinking, man, some of those, well, you know the girl that played the lead. I've seen her at your house before. She babysat your kids for a while. What is her name? Sweet girl.
Molly?
She was the lead. Yes.
She was the lead?
Hysterical. Yeah.
She was like the funny lead?
Well, like the secondary lead.
No, I know, but I didn't know she was even in the show.
Oh,
okay.
She was the best part of the show for me. She was so funny. The kids did a good job. I love Jeff Paul directed it, and I love his direction. I loved the way he used certain pieces and things, but I think it was just, to me, like I couldn't get into the storyline of it, and then like the music wasn't catchy to me.
Yeah.
And I think we all have those shows that I love Children of Eden. I have a connection to it. I think some people come watch it and be like, meh. I don't know. I think they're just certain shows that we all specifically love. Like I know Karen, our friend Karen, she loves quilters, and she has a very strong connection to the show Quilters. I personally not a fan of quilters, but I think that is a testament to theater and what it can do to you as a person, you know?
But I think, like we said before, like there's a certain level of, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but there's a certain level of interest that you maintain doing a show and learning a show, and a certain amount of love you gain for a show. And especially like I know, having done Quilters with Karen, there's so much about how you build that show as a cast that it's so bonding that's what you take away from it.
I can totally see that.
It's not really so much about just the material.
Sure. And I think that brings me to a point, like when people ask, and I ask people this too, well, what's your favorite show? I'm always like, okay, my favorite show to be in, my favorite show to watch, my favorite show to direct, or my favorite show to listen to. Because I have learned, especially in these last 10 years, there are shows that I played out when I was younger on CDs in my car, that I've now seen on stage, and I'm like, nope, never need to see that show again. I just want to listen to it. Aida is one of those shows.
I was going to say, any chance you have one of those on hand?
Aida, top of the Adam Lambert and I would sit in his car after our rehearsals and we would belt Aida at the top of our lungs and we'd be like rocking the songs. I could sing every word from Aida. I went to go see it and I was like, oh no. Like it's just, it doesn't transfer well to stage. I feel that way about Dreamgirls. I love the music in Dreamgirls. Was not a fan of the stage production. And everyone has their own. Some people, Dreamgirls is their favorite musical, you know?
Yeah.
So
but
I think
again, that's theater because everyone relates to things differently and everyone has different favorites, you know?
Totally. But Starlight Express, just saying.
Yeah. So anyway, Andrew Lloyd Webber is who I would say write a biomusical about.
I like that. He's got a good life too.
Yeah,
coming in 2025.
Maybe
Andrew Lloyd
he
Webber
could write an auto-biomusical. The first one.
That would be super cool.
Yeah.
It's a little indulgent.
Yeah, but that is also very on brand, right?
So then he would write his own new music. Like they wouldn't be using his old music.
Not necessarily, but because a lot of times... Because you would use your old music because
or maybe it's
like
both.
A jukebox musical. Yeah.
And he could write one new song that's like the theme of Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
You know what? Like I want to tell one more story before we jump off. But last summer I took students to foggy London town for a trip. Yes. And we saw some shows on Broadway, on the West End.
Foggy London town. I'm stuck on that right now. Hold, please.
Foggy London town.
All right, carry on.
Just, carry on.
Carry on. Keep calm and carry on.
And we saw a couple shows on the West End, and we saw And Juliet, which is now on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And talking about Jersey Boys, Ain't Too Proud, Motown, and kind of that demographic where the people would get up and sing and dance, or Rock of Ages and that like kind of 70s, 80s rock, right? My students, because they used a bunch of popular music, so like Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, things that our kids
literally our high school years.
Yeah. So, but my students still know it, right? Like not as well as I know it.
That's
but
right.
Man, they were on their feet, like singing along, like a song would come on and they're like, yeah, like it's almost like is this concert feeling to it, which is really fun to see. So I do think, certain shows, depending on the music, of what era that music comes from, they're going to hit a different demographic. But I felt like Anne Juliet did a really good job of sort of some of this modern, and Moulin Rouge is like that too.
Well, I want to ask you about Anne Juliet because I obviously have not seen it yet, but I listened to the soundtrack a bit and I found it not overly enjoyable to listen to. And what I mean by that is I felt like all the cuts were really short. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the cuts are like a minute and a half. It's like a 32-bar cut of a song.
But once you see the show, you'll know why. Because the way it's written in, they're not big numbers. It's just a moment. It's very like, and now we break into song and then we move on to the next part. And the scene work is really, the writing is really great. So
because I was like, does it flow well
into the pacing of the show? What's that?
Yeah, I just said, does it flow well? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, look, I saw it in the West End. I don't know if they've done any revisions to it since, but I thought it was very well done. I think it's very of our time. And I think young people really connect to it. Of course, I had my few things about it that I was like, but I thought it was really
I had my
well
few
written.
things about Wicked that I'm like, so everybody can have their things.
There's always stuff.
Yeah.
But it was really enjoyable. And I think it was a cool experience to take my students. 6 is another one that I would really love to see. It was on the West End, but we didn't get a chance to see it. So when that comes through here, we'll have to go see it.
We're going to see it for my birthday.
That's right. We'll pick a day.
Pick a day, any day. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Our next episode, Christopher. Hold on. Our next episode, we have to talk about
okay.
movies turned to musicals, okay? Or more TV shows, movies turned to musicals.
All right.
Deal?
All right. Film to stage on it.
That sounds more professional.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Charnopher Official. Check us out at uncommonpod.com. And on that note, Charnopher
out.
Boom. Yeah, that'll be fun to do. Gangsta. Oh, that takes us back.
In foggy London town.
I'm out.
That one got you. That's fun.
This concludes another episode of Uncommon Sense. If you're ready for more of this fresh, hilarious, and unique perspective on the world of entertainment, education, and life, be sure to subscribe right now to catch every episode. If you gasped, laughed out loud, or even snorted, share the show with your friends and aspiring entertainers because, let's be real, sharing is caring. For more Charnopher, tune in to their witty insights by checking out the website uncommonpod.com or connecting on social media. Tune in next week and get the real insider scoop on another episode of Uncommon Sense.